Sixth and final match of Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region is coming up. We got Bozzzton taking on BoarControl in our final match of week number 2 here. Darroch, I'm not Sabrina, by the way. How you doing?
I'm doing very well indeed. This day, I don't know quite what's going on, but there's something up with these players. We have seen incredibly complicated games, a la Pavel versus Hunter-Ace. We have seen players getting absolutely demolished, with plays like Tice getting the Spirit of the Frog in Mana Cyclone Mage, and then Fino there just kind of destroying Viper off the face of the earth in that last game. That was not even close to a game.
Yeah, it really was not. I think for me, the Tice Silvername game number 3 was probably the highlight of the day, but we got one match to go to try to beat that.
And for both of these players, they are definitely going to be wanting to take that victory. This is out of the two players with the weakest scores so far matching up against each other. We have BoarControl on an 0-3 record so far in Grandmasters, up against Bozzzton on 1-2. Was able to take a victory this week, which definitely helped him to get his name on the table a little bit, as he has been falling prey a little bit to, I think, predictability with, as we can see here, his Bomb Warrior yet again, which was much, much more popular in week 1 of Grandmasters across all regions. But Bozzzton deciding to stick with it here instead of transitioning over to Cyclone Mage, as most players have done.
And you can see some of the recent developments that took place. Casey was running the Geppetto Joybuzz, the Barista Lynch this week. Bozzzton has it as one of the secondary options in there. But I am starting to think that Bomb Warrior is probably going to need some revisiting on it right now. To me, overall, it feels weak. And I love Warrior. I play a ton of Warrior. The things that right now strike me as strange, Archivist Elysiana. I hate that card. It's 9 mana now, and you can't go to Infinite Fatigue with it. So I don't want it in the deck. And to me, it just feels like it's missing some sort of aggressive punch early on. Like, I'm actually curious if to fight Cyclone Mage, that Frothing Berserker could be a good option.
It's definitely something to consider. I mean, there have been builds of Bomb Warrior, which are like, the removal goes out, more minions go in. They generally haven't been as strong, but
stuff like Brawl just feels so important.
Right, exactly, and that's why I like Casey's build of the deck so much, with the aggression and the removal. But either way, on to BoarControl's Cyclone Mage, which is a somewhat interesting build of the deck. One Snap Freeze in there, mostly for the Mage Mirror to be able to deal with those giants. Does have the double Frost Nova though, which is fantastic in that. Against the Warrior, however, this is a very light build of the Conjurer's Calling Mana Cyclone Mage, at least for the primary deck.
For the primary deck, I definitely think so. But, you know, this has been probably one of the biggest talks of this week in terms of Grandmasters and matchups, is who is favored, Warrior or Cyclone Mage. Yeah. And I think that, just seeing from the results that we've had, I think it is Cyclone Mage. But also just hearing players talk about the philosophy of the game and hearing how they approach it and hearing what's important in the matchup. For all intents and purposes, I have to believe that Cyclone Mage is favored. More players brought it. They've been winning the matchup, and it hasn't really been with, I think, insane hands. I think it's been with good hands, but nothing that's over the top where you go, well, you're just not beating that. I think the way you look at it is you go, well, yeah, that's the point of pressure in which the Warrior can't respond.
I would definitely agree with you there. I think that some of the results that players have been reporting with Warrior versus Mage is the fact that they are not playing against Grandmaster tier players. If you are playing against the likes of Psycho and Fino on the Mage, you're probably just going to get destroyed. They're too good. They just don't make these mistakes. They know exactly what to look for in these matchups. And BoarControl, despite his 0-3 start, is definitely a player that I would personally put on, if not the exact same tier as the likes of Fino and Psycho, he's pretty much at the top of the top.
Look, there's two things at work. Number one, we're still fairly early in the season. We're not even a third of the way through. Yeah. Some players are going to have tough scores. That's just the nature of the way numbers work out. But secondarily, it's to get to this point in general, just to get to Grandmasters, to seed yourself across from everybody else and to say, distinguishably, these people have a pedigree slightly above the rest.
Absolutely.
That alone, I think, speaks to your ability to play the game. Now, how much practice you've put in or how hard you've worked once you've gotten to this point on specific matchups and tried to target other people, that's another story. I can't speak for that because I don't know what they do in their personal time. But their results, I think, over the last half of a decade speak for themselves.
They really do. As already a kind of interesting interaction that would not come up in this matchup most of the time has occurred. The Sorcerer's Apprentice on 2 does have a direct punish from Bozzzton with his one copy of Weapons Project in the deck, which the vast majority of Bomb Warrior players have cut. It was primarily an anti-rogue card. You gain the armor, and you override their waggle pick. But now, obviously, with preparation and raiding party and evil miscreant all getting nerfed, people were expecting a lot less rogue, understandably so. And they cut it, but with Bozzzton keeping it in, it made BoarControl a little bit hesitant to just throw down the Sorcerer's Apprentice at least, despite the fact that it is working out for him now.
I also want to get your timing down pat. You don't want to give anything away by playing too quickly.
That's true.
And I think for a player like BoarControl, where he's often seeking that style of play, like where's the big swing turn come in, I think it's important for, you know, that style of play to also just take your time. Like for Fino, I think one of the big benefits of it is that he's playing so fast that, you know, these are important matches, and I think that with the momentum of the match and how it plays out, I often find myself succumbing to this, where I find myself playing too quickly in the face of my opponent playing quickly. Where I'm like, oh, you're going to play fast? I'm going to play fast too. Something you want to avoid.
Man, this turn from BoarControl was tough. Like, this play that he went for is very likely to get punished. He didn't play the second banana, which plays exactly into the wrench caliber for Bozzzton. I wonder if he went through the numbers and figured out that if he plays second banana buffoon on the following turn, he can play giant on 5 mana. And that is actually the case, I believe, going to 6 with the 2 bananas and then 5 on turn 5.
That's exactly why.
Which is definitely his thinking in this instance. However, it's weaker to coin Wrench Caliber, and it's weaker to coin Militia Commander, because it doesn't even kill it off.
Perhaps you want your opponent to coin Wrench Caliber in this spot, though. Not that you want them to, but that expending the coin means that they're not hitting Dr. Boom or Blastmaster Boom ahead of the curve. And we saw from Bozzzton yesterday a reluctance to spend coin. It's obviously a play BoarControl didn't want to see, but if you're going to see it, playing around the Wrench Caliber is just as likely as playing around the Militia Commander.
And while the negative of his line of play has already become apparent in the Sorcerer's Apprentice being killed off, the positives of his line of play are yet to be realized, with the Mounted Giant being able to come down on turn 5, I believe, if he were to play the Banana Buffoon here. The Conjurer's Calling does open up a different line of play, though.
It does. However,
it's worth considering.
I think that BoarControl is spot on with his thinking here. It's force my opponent to expend resources. Let's keep their armor in check.
Yes.
Let's land the Giant on 5 and say, you know what, if you got to brawl this, good luck.
I think that's super important with respect to the armor total. Generally, you play the way that BoarControl is playing a lot more aggressively if you have Antonidas in your deck, because chipping down the armor early on and the health total as well is super important to finish off with Antonidas. He does not have that in his primary deck, but still, he is just going off here.
Really poor result on one of these rolls with the Voodoo Doll.
Pretty miserable, actually.
The second one will draw Ziliax from the deck, though.
It will.
That feels important.
But still, a huge deviation from the expected game plan here.
This is a lot of what Orange was talking about earlier this week, though, as well, which is, you know, getting more aggressive and putting your opponent to tests, where sometimes just 2 3-drops is good enough. And honestly, I love this line of play, because as I was talking about earlier, it feels like the Giants are what players are getting punished for.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels like having a 3-drop and then Conjurer's Calling is very tough for your opponent. It's just super annoying.
And this buffed up Ursatron now is really difficult for Bozzzton to deal with without the exact card of Militia Commander to take care of it. If he draws a Dynamatic next turn, it's a mech. It is not killed by that. Nothing deals with it at the moment.
It's a multi-turn
just
setup.
Has to develop. Play his minions here, I think.
And look at the hand from Bozzzton as well. The cost of coin is clearly going to impact this
So
game.
true. That's an excellent point.
I think BoarControl plays in such a unique way to disrupt players that I often find myself learning a lot from watching him.
Yeah.
Like, I watch a ton of BoarControl stream. He happens to just be on in the morning, usually when I wake up and he's streaming. But he plays Disruption in such a unique way, and when you hear him explain it, you're like, wow, that just makes sense. And it has really opened my eyes to why BoarControl is such a unique player in my mind.
And I think one of the things I like most about listening to BoarControl as a player is the fact that he is so conflicted as a player. It's not the fact that he sees the best line instantly and always takes it. You can hear his thought process because he doubts himself a lot of the time.
Saw a wince there from Bozzzton, who has a technical missequence here. You want to have more armor.
That was a technical
It could have been a wince, actually, at the Ziliax getting drawn. That's a possibility. But he should have 2 armor in this instance. It's the attack first, and then you use the Warpath.
That was just wrong. Yeah. What?
I love when Darroch gets to say it. That was just wrong.
It was just wrong.
Something else to note is BoarControl and the Mountain Giant, which remember, we were talking about playing on turn 5. If he Banana Moons here, the Mountain Giant goes to 5 cost. The next turn it goes to 4 cost. So either with a draw of Elemental Evocation, or with just the natural way that he's going to play a single card a turn, he gets to Giant and Conjurer's Calling in the same turn.
Right, which he absolutely wants to set up to do.
Yeah.
Because Bozzzton is much more likely to be able to deal with a single Mountain Giant. Again, even though he is running no copies of Executes, the only hard removal is the Shield Slam. Actually, having said that, maybe BoarControl can set up for an earlier Mountain Giant than being able to play the Conjurer's Calling on the same turn.
I love this. Honestly, the more I'm watching it from BoarControl, he had this iteration, I think, in totality of plan. Not necessarily with the Ursatron roll,
right?
But the idea was set, I think, straightforward in this motion. Because mind you, when he got the 3/3, he had to expend the banana to keep it alive.
Yes.
I don't necessarily think he'd be doing that if it wasn't Ursatron.
I think most 3/3s he would there because the coin had been expended, so coin Dynamatic was not a play.
Yeah.
You know, mech or not, it still dies to Militia Commander there. But I fully see your point that Ursatron was kind of offset the poor aspect of the Voodoo Doll there, which was miserable.
It's just a unique game so far. I'm liking it.
So how does Bozzzton develop here? I mean, I would say all 3 minions that he can play here all have their merit. I like the Harrison the least. But I can see the thinking behind it.
I think I like the Militia Commander the most because if you draw a 3-cost card, you get to play it with the Clockwork Goblin.
Good point.
I don't like the Harrison that much less than the Militia Commander. The reason I'm thinking specifically is there is a weapons project in the deck.
Yeah.
At some point, it could represent 3-drop.
BoarControl here just filling up the old hand, setting up for, as I said, the Conjurer's Calling Mountain Giant. Goes for another couple of 3-drops here.
I mean, he's exposed that he has 2 Conjurer's Calling, but honestly, like, this is just a lot of stuff that Bozzzton has to expend to deal with.
Did somebody order a bomb?
And it's really bad on board right now.
Yeah. But for BoarControl, this is perfectly timed for him on the following turn. Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling exactly into turn 7 for Bozzzton. Meaning that Dr. Boom Mad Genius
I'm telling you,
or Blastmaster Boom.
The whole iteration was thought out. From the Coin Wrench Caliber, let the Sorcerer's Apprentice die, to this turn. I'm telling you, he thought it all out. I've watched enough BoarControl to know that that was at least one of the thoughts in his head.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that he was trying to go for a later Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling on the same turn to fight against a Dr. Boom is definitely something he would have considered. Obviously, the minutiae of the game plan is impossible to predict. And unless on this turn we were looking at trade double Conjurer's Calling on the 3-drop, which I don't think is worth considering. It's obviously just going to be a big old play here.
So now, I saw this debate on Zalay's stream about trading a minion to play around Brawl. When you miss face damage, did you actually play around Brawl, or did you play into Brawl?
Is this the debate of 2 times 6 equals 12?
I don't know how they landed on the math they landed on.
Right.
But the long story short...
There was some really funky maths going on.
The long story short is when you trade a minion and your opponent gets brawled, you lost that minion's damage.
Yeah.
When you don't trade a minion and then your opponent brawls, you secured the damage instead. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective. I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, there was so many words being thrown around in that stream. I did not understand what anyone was saying at the end. Like, there was just so much pseudo-maths being thrown down. Like, I wasn't even sure if it was right or wrong at the end.
Pseudo-math.
So I'm just going to refrain from comment.
Here it's obvious you go face because 3/3s don't hit 7/8s very well.
If he wants to play Dr. Boom, he's going to have to take a lot of damage. And what do you know? Bozzzton is going to be taking a lot of damage. However, he does have the power turn of Blastmaster Boom with the rushing bombs on the next turn.
I don't know if this is good enough.
I'm not sure either.
Especially if BoarControl freezes.
Oh yeah, if he doesn't trade here, then that's way less board space even to be thrown down.
Boston's thinking about if he trades, he gets to Conjurer's Calling that minion. If I don't trade and he freezes my board, What do I lose as a result of that?
It's all miserable.
It's tough. It's extremely tough. Halfway point.
Yeah, one of each. Just make more likely to die to the bombs.
What a miserable play that Bozzzton had to make. And I think BoarControl...
Head in hands, does he play around Brawl? If he goes for the Conjurer's Calling with Khadgar, he never loses if Bozzzton does not have Brawl.
If you rip a 1 in 19 on me, it's very clear to me you don't have Brawl. You got me.
Is it very clear he doesn't have Brawl?
Yes.
Yes,
I think so.
okay,
I think absolutely so. Well, not technically the case because your opponent did just play Blastmaster Boom. I'm sorry, Dr. Boom.
Yeah. Oh, it's so close.
I think you're pretty confident.
Can he make the read?
What to do?
Can you play Stargazer Luna with it and draw a card?
You can just tell Boar is thinking the exact same thing here. He's literally saying the exact same thing, talking to himself.
Look, if Bozzzton had Brawl that turn, there's a 40% chance of to just maintain the board. You wipe out Giants and half of a Conjurer's Calling with 2 cards.
The Conjurer's Calling on its own is still really good, though. But BoarControl's going for it. He's saying,
you go, brother.
I don't believe you have it. You have to get Brawl off the top or the game ends.
By the way, even if you get Brawl, 4 of my minions, or 5 of my minions, excuse me, are a disaster for you.
All right, let's have a look.
GG.
That ain't Brawl.
Wait a minute. How many bombs are in deck? 4?
Yeah, I mean...
Wait a minute. There was 1 chance.
Okay, every single bomb goes face for 4. And then 3 bombs off the top.
The other thing I was thinking was discover a mech. It's a Clockwork Goblin. You Elec that. They draw 6 bombs in a row.
Okay, there were outs.
Quotey fingers. Outs.
Yep.
With the way that today's gone, it wouldn't surprise me. But here, it's literally impossible. BoarControl steamrolls through game number 1.
And what a fascinating game that was. You could very clearly see his game plan, as you said, mapped out from very early on. There were punishes along the way. Only buffing the Sorcerer's Apprentice once allowed for Bozzzton to go for the Coin Wrench Caliber. But then obviously you brought up the fact, is that even that bad?
Are these punishes or are they iterations? That's my question about it. To me, it looks like this was more akin to me like a game of chess from BoarControl, where you see the way that all the trades are going to line up, you do your powerful thing, and then do they have the answer? Like, chess isn't solved.
Yep.
Hearthstone is certainly not solved.
Absolutely.
That was an iteration I think that BoarControl very much had in mind.
I mean, most of the iterations revolve pretty purely around whether or not they draw Brawl early on. I mean, obviously there is still counterplay that they can go for, but because Boar knew that he had to have exactly Brawl there, Boar is very much a player who makes his opponents have cards, and you can see the benefit of that style of play.
And also with the damage secured, the Brawl still left him dead.
Right, exactly.
5 out of 7 times. Unbelievable to me. We're going to a break, and when we come back, Bozzzton's got to answer back, or else his first 2 weeks of Grandmaster, not looking so hot. Stay tuned. It's our last match of the day.
So you're probably wondering why I gathered you here. Let me take a moment and break it down. We've been given black eyes by the good guys. Oh, but that's about to change. Those meddlesome mortals who've mocked up our missions will finally feel some of our pain. You see, I have a devious plan that requires a demonstrative fist, and each of you will have your dreams come true as a fiendish finger of peace. What? All right, let me try this again. Alone all our dreams went. Kaboom! Yes, but united we'll take the candle. No fish bigger.
I'm seeing what you want to do.
Let me hear it.
We'll come together so we can dismantle.
Now here's the plot to capture your greed and intrigue. We'll take Dalaran for all that it's got. As we form an evil league.
My name is Francisco Frale Montas. One of my best friends came out with my nickname. We are all getting like nicknames with 3 letters for some reason. We're like 13 years old. My name is Francisco, and Francisco's called Pancho, so it's just like 3 letters from that, P and C. One interesting thing about me that most people don't know is that I used to study ancient history. I quit for Hearthstone a couple of years, but plan on going back at one point. My favorite Hearthstone Esports moment was when I topped like Lethal 2016 Copa America Finals. That was like my first big win, and I was very, very happy. It's like finally all that I worked for coming true. Beating Grandmasters for me means that all the hard work that I put in last years and all the time that I spent in the game is paying off. My favorite thing about Grandmasters would be that I get a chance to prove myself like on the big stage. What makes me unique as a player, I would say, is just bringing very complicated decks to tournament, like mostly combo decks that people usually don't play. My personal goals this year will be to earn as much money as I can, of course, and yeah, just improve as a player and play the best I can.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region, our 6th and final match of the day, currently underway. BoarControl with a 1-0 lead over Bozzzton. I'm Matt Admiral. I'm joined by Derek Brown. And we saw the thing from PNC there, who's going to be kicking off the Americas region as soon as we are done here. He's taking on Muzzy in the first match of the day there. So stay tuned if you're looking for that one. So Derek, up a game. They're moving on to different decks. I imagine that BoarControl is going for the heavy-handed mage deck afterwards with the pair of Astromancers, and I imagine that Bozzzton is pretty clearly going over to Big Game Hunters, Brawl, and Super Collider.
Yep, they both have very clearly planned out strategies of BoarControl has an anti-warrior deck with 2 Astromancers, Archmage Antonidas, Harrison Jones, and Messenger Raven slotted in there, taking out Snap Freeze, Double Frost Nova, Rabble Bouncer, and Sea Giant. Generally pretty remarkable cards in the warrior matchup. They either struggle to be used or just don't really have a good purpose against the deck at all. And then for Bozzzton, putting in Execute, 2 Big Game Hunters, 2nd Brawl, and a copy of Super Collider, taking out Warpath Weapons Project, Iron Beak, Harrison, and Elysiana, all of which are bad cards in the matchup, substituting in a heck of a lot of removal to deal with Boar's big threats.
I don't know what to do with this opening hand from Bozzzton. I want to keep Wrench Caliber, and I don't want to keep the others.
You don't want to keep the Rovers.
I don't.
It does die to Sorcerer's Apprentice, just played out.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, that's fair. What cards are you really looking for then, do you think?
3 drops.
Yep.
I guess I don't want to keep the Wrench Caliber because I want my Town Crier.
I agree. I don't like keeping the Wrench Caliber. I think I would be cautious to even keep the Eternium Rover here, but
I guess
it is a 1-drop on 1.
So there's 2 ways to look at it. Number 1, your Wrench Caliber can get weapon checked, which opens you for Super Collider. Or number 2, you can just hope they never draw Harrison Jones. I mean, that sounds like a better plan to me.
And if they, if they Harrison your your Wrench Caliber, they're not Harrisoning your Super Collider.
Yeah, but then they are Harrisoning one of your weapons, and you didn't blow up a bunch of big stuff with it.
Also true. However, this hand for Bozzzton is looking a little bit slow as it currently stands. And if BoarControl is playing anything like what we've seen him play so far with this mage deck, the cards that Bozzzton has in hand, BoarControl isn't even going to be that vulnerable to.
That being said,
Dynamatic is probably the biggest of his warriors at the moment.
Yeah, that being said, I do think Bozzzton's hand is quite powerful.
Yes.
I think this has the potential to have a lot of game versus what BoarControl wants to do. And the benefit of having the Eternium over early with Dynomatic is that, A, it weakens up the 2 health minion a little bit, so Dynomatic has easier clears. A lot of the breakpoints are 2 health.
Very true.
On BoarControl's side. And then number 2, it also keeps his armor total fairly healthy in that regard. This isn't a minion that BoarControl is just free to hero power down, but he is free to contest it.
Job's done.
BoarControl, once again, is teammates with Pheno at the moment, and has clearly been taking lessons on spend your mana, play your minions.
Very powerful hand from Bozzzton, though, but
yeah,
he
this
needs
is shaping
time.
up nicely. And his hand does buy him time. The only thing he's really vulnerable to at the moment is an absurdly powerful turn from BoarControl, which requires a brawl.
So I'm looking at bump the Banana Buffoon here. If you don't bump the Banana Buffoon, you're open to just banana and trade. Not quite as good. You don't get as much armor. You get effectively the same amount of armor when BoarControl chooses to hero power.
If he does choose to hero power, you're pretty fine with that, because then he's not playing an AI or a second Banana Buffoon.
Yeah. In the iteration where you don't trade, though, you also are sometimes buying your opponent not AIing because they use a banana.
That's fair. I think I just prefer the trade, though. Just gets you a little bit of armor, weakens this minion a little bit. And again, if they don't go for the hero power or the banana buffoon, or sorry, the banana on the banana buffoon, you're just easily clearing it off.
I think BoarControl is a bit interested in at least spending something.
Well, he really wants to play Arcane Intellect, right?
So if you Arcane Intellect, you go to 9 cards, and then the following turn you go to 10 cards, then you can't play Sandbinder without burning a card.
Okay.
So I'm looking at perhaps a mirror image turn.
Mirror image hero power face.
Protects you from a weapon.
Okay. Protects you from militia commander. It's definitely got merits.
I wonder.
And you do have to be somewhat careful about using mirror image in this matchup because you can get into the point where you run out of board space for your big threats. And it's also terrible outcomes in the case of a brawl.
That now brings me to splitting image.
Time runs out on me.
Do you just play it and go face? Or do you just Conjurer's Calling on your 3-drop again?
I love this. It's such an appealing play when I look at it.
Oh, look at Bozzzton's reaction again, man. Nothing to play on turns 2, 3,
Hey,
or 4.
this is Warrior in a nutshell. Sometimes you don't do this.
Yeah.
The point when you're not playing anything, often honestly, that's one of the scariest times when you're facing down Warrior.
Yeah.
Is you look at these plays and you go, what does that mean they have? Like this gives, I feel, BoarControl a lot of mixed signals about the hand where it's either exactly what Bozzzton has, which can be bad for BoarControl,
Yeah.
or he's got brawls and super colliders and shield slams and nonsense like that. I think this is a tough situation for BoarControl.
No.
It's easy for Bozzzton. You hit the armor button. But don't let Boar know that.
Where does he send the 1? He just... Oh, yeah. Like, if you go for trade on the 2-drop, BoarControl is very likely just going to go for another Conjurer's Calling. Because BoarControl also knows that 1 copy of Warpath has been taken out of the deck.
Ooh, Khadgar.
So going wide has a little punish. I mean, for BoarControl, if he can just set up for Khadgar into Conjurer's Calling on anything next turn, if that baits out a brawl, he's over the moon.
Yeah, Sandbinder it is. Mountain Giant definitely feels like a strong follow-up card to me to Conjurer's Calling situations.
Yeah.
When your opponent has the answer, that is. And so for BoarControl, is the merit there for trading off this Eternium Rover?
Well, it plays around Ziliax, obviously, but
I wonder.
at the same time, Ziliax would be getting no healing if it was to be played that turn. Oh, man.
Well,
And look at BoarControl's playstyle. This is such a perfect illustration of the benefits of this way of playing the deck. Double BGH in hand for Bozzzton and nothing to target on curve against the exact deck he put it in for.
smells like Dynomatic to me. Does trading play around Dynomatic? Nope. You missed 3 damage.
How does he do that
yeah.
then? Would he
Slam
trade
it.
first or...
I want to slam it.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe.
Oh man, that Witch's Cauldron's just so annoying though. A reasonable outcome, and does also burn a card
Yep.
from BoarControl.
There we go. So the Witch's Cauldron provides a random factor to it, but doesn't actually change the card advantage mechanism.
Yes.
My hand
man.
is too full.
Astromancer is a very rough burn. The grimace on Boar's face says pretty much everything you need to know there. But this turn, however, is pretty juicy. We could see Khadgar Conjurer's Calling on the Sandbinder. That gives 4 4-drops on the board against a deck which plays 1 copy of Warpath.
You do have to think about Witch's Cauldron with like Mirror Entity, Witch's Cauldron with...
Witch's Cauldron is pretty terrible actually here for Boar.
Yeah, so are you Conjurer's Calling the Witch's Cauldron, perhaps?
I wonder.
Stop filling up your hand with garbage. Do you banana it?
He's taking it slow this time.
Yeah, just create tension. It gets cards out of your hand. Okay. It clears off the board. Your opponent can't Super Collider here super effectively. And second Dynomatic, it's wasted on just 2 health on play.
I think the other big benefit is BoarControl wants to go for his power play going into turn 7. If at all possible, if either of these minions survive, I think he will very happily slam a Khadgar's Conjurer's Calling.
Every single time for BoarControl, he has not been interested in the speed at which to play Conjurer's Calling Mountain Giant.
It's the key windows.
It's the timing.
Yeah. Yeah. So how it actually shakes out is he would not be able to do that with Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling on the following turn unless one of these minions survives or he picks up... Oh no, if they died in the other order, he would have been able to go Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling.
Do they die in the other order, or is it simultaneous death? I believe it's simultaneous.
Is it simultaneous? Oh, okay, I'm not...
I believe it's simultaneous where the Dynomatic can just not hit... It can't hit a 0 health minion, I believe.
If you hit an Acolyte of Pain, though, doesn't it draw and then the effect carries on?
Acolyte of Pain may just be a weird exception to it. That's a strange functioning card.
I actually think I'm right in this instance. But again, it's...
I'm not sure.
Neither here nor there.
I haven't counted that
in that order. Ooh. Splitting Image here is spicy. Obviously clears out a space from hand, but more importantly, setting up for a giant into Conjurer's Calling turn. That could get him a lot of value.
Yeah, the fact that he could not disrupt BoarControl from having this Dr. Boom.
From Bozzzton.
I'm sorry, that BoarControl could not stop Bozzzton from doing this. Scope for a bigger setup.
And this is where things are definitely going to start looking a lot rougher for BoarControl. He has overdrawn one of the key cards in this matchup in Astromancer. Dr. Boom is now down. Bozzzton does not have Brawl yet, but he has many other fantastic tech cards in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm very worried for BoarControl in this one. These are the situations where Warrior is undoubtedly at an advantage.
Yeah. 1 mana... Oh, no, sorry. With Elemental Evocation, we could just see an all-in play here. Mountain Giant, Khadgar, and Conjurer's Calling. All in and pray they don't have the Brawl.
I honestly...
Is he in that bad of a position? Arguably, yes.
Yeah, I think he often is. Also just Super Collider. Super Collider is going to be so good against you in this spot. Like,
and in that case, maybe you should get these minions down while you have the Splitting Image in play.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking something's got to give here.
I don't know. Is it just cast division getting to me that I can see Bozzzton does not have it? I mean,
think about Boar's perspective. Bozzzton did nothing on the first couple of turns. But does he have an option other than to go for it?
He's going for it.
And look at Bozzzton's face.
This was the last thing he wanted to see.
Super Collider, you take 8. You drop to 34 effective. You get to kill 2 giants, but Splitting Image is there to create another one. So you're facing down 26 on the other side. You have Execute to kill another.
So in terms of secrets, Bozzzton has only ruled out Vaporize and Ice Barrier by the attack phase last turn with the Dynomatic.
So you attack the Khadgar first?
That's what I'm thinking. That does then give another Khadgar, I guess, you hero power to clear up.
You can't you can hero power to clear that up. Yeah. You're getting hit by 2 giants next turn. Let's put it that way.
Right, and you're taking the 8 damage from swinging into one on this turn as well.
Hey, when I'm at 42, I think I can take 16 damage. Heck, I might be able to even take 24.
24 is a big old chunk, though. And there is Archmage Antonidas in the deck. Khadgar summons 2 Khadgars. I didn't even think about that.
Imagine if he attacked the giant first. That would have been a disaster.
That would have been an absolute disaster. So Khadgar sticks on the board now. BoarControl has no way to take advantage of that right now. And this was obviously the best it could have worked out for Bozzzton. But he tanks a huge amount of damage on this turn.
18 loaded up.
All right, we go for the Harrison here. BoarControl can go for the Harrison to try and hit the second Conjurer's Calling.
And if BoarControl didn't know that Brawl wasn't there, he certainly knows it now.
Oh, yes. unless he thinks that Bozzzton doesn't have a cheaper a spell that costs 3 or less to play, because Bozzzton could have thought that was Counterspell.
Ah.
That's where things get a bit interesting.
But he attacked the Khadgar and saw that it wasn't Counterspell.
I wonder.
And then he didn't brawl.
Yes, yeah, sorry. No, you are correct. You are correct. Yeah, that was the check for Counterspell as well. Okay, so BoarControl can pretty firmly read there's no brawl.
Well, I
So
remember
how does he capitalize on that information? Mirror Image does protect his board. It's the turn before Omega Devastators can come down as well.
Plays around Super Collider here.
There's only one in the deck.
Oh, you're right.
All used up. It's a little bit of armor gain.
Attack, execute, BGH.
Yeah. You can fit in the hero power as well, which helps you take out the Harrison.
So hero
And
power.
take out- yeah,
oh,
you-
this is beautiful
Yeah,
turn,
you can
actually.
clear up a lot of stuff.
Whoa, this is major.
This is the swing turn he needed. And he has the follow-up of another big game hunter. Wrench Caliber to combo with the Blastmaster Boom.
I mean, the importance of early damage on BoarControl's side, like, I think shines paramount in this situation where he has Bozzzton down to 16, but Bozzzton had 12 armor.
Yeah.
So, like, if he wasn't able to gain this much armor, he'd be at 4.
BoarControl here looks to be going for a big old Conjurer's, Mana Cyclone turn.
He's going full in. He says, give me maximum burn.
This is a turn of Hearthstone. He needs to generate some damage off of this Cyclone.
Whoa! Oh
my
my!
God.
Whoa! That is, yeah, that's what happens when you generate this many random spells. Sometimes you just get the goods. Double power of creation, double Conjurer's Calling. Who cares what the rest of them are? That's enough stuff.
That's so much stuff. I've never seen that much stuff in my life.
Whoa.
What has happened with Mage this week?
Popped off.
Oh my god. BoarControl never runs out of stuff anymore.
Now,
This
from
would be a
Boston's side,
good
though,
time
he
for
can
a list
contain
of
this
play.
pretty well,
Okay.
which is the hero power on the 4/3, BGH the second Mountain Giant. You can leave
Shield
images in play.
That's true. BoarControl can develop 2 6-cost minions 2 turns in a row, however, which gets
Yeah.
a lot of damage in for not much board space.
That's why I'd probably be in favor of starting to clear, but I could see reason not to. Bozzzton decides that he needs presence in play. He needs the ability to draw cards, so he takes the risk of dying to burn spells, namely Pyroblast in this instance. I think that's wise.
Reckless Rocketeer just ends the game here for BoarControl.
Argent Commander's pretty darn close. Argent Commander is
Damage
really
off lethal.
darn close.
Bozzzton only has 1 Warpath in the deck to fight back against this.
But he's got a brawl, and he has 5 armor loaded with shield block.
He can survive.
Is there a mech you can find first? Is there a reason to shield block first? Like, Warpath here is
Warpath is-
exceptional in comparison.
Yes, Warpath is much better. I agree. So the answer to that would be yes. You do draw a card first. That ain't doing it.
Do you clear off the images and maximize your own potential to win the brawl? Or do you just say, I really need the damage gone. Let the mirror images live at potentially the cost of my own minion.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Boomreaver?
Yeah, none of these are Ziliacs, basically.
Boomreaver can Fetch still actually the deck, though. I mean,
I guess, yeah. Whatever he's going to do, he's got to do it right now, or he's just dead. Here we go. The last hurrah for Bozzzton. We can clearly see he is in an absolutely miserable position, no matter what the result. Oh my god.
oh boy.
Poor Bozzzton. Everything is going wrong for him this game.
Good.
And how does BoarControl capitalize on this?
Take your pick.
I mean, yeah, like, he can do anything now.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Yeah, pretty good.
I mean, you could leave the mechanical whelp alive just to play around a brawl. I mean, why not? That's damage. Pingface sets up almost guaranteed lethal on the following turn.
One more time.
Time runs out on me.
One more time.
He's just going for the lethal right now. This is not good enough for him.
Assaulted on every front, and no answers left. Bozzzton cannot fight back, and that means BoarControl is going to take this set 2-0 and pick up his first match win here in Grandmasters, and that has got to be a sigh of relief.
Absolutely. I think this was such an important win for BoarControl, not only in terms of maintaining his chances of going through to the playoffs at the end of Season 1, but also just for his own mentality. Like, he is a player who can get into his own head. He can be pretty pessimistic at times. He's English. It's kind of what we do. But yeah, getting that first win is so important for him, especially against such a contentious matchup as we're seeing in terms of the debate between Mage and Warrior. But with the way BoarControl was playing, I would say there is little chance he lost that series. That was some fantastic Hearthstone.
Yeah, but we have an interview ready with BoarControl. BoarControl, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Congratulations on your win here. This has to be a sigh of relief, given how things started. Talk to me a bit about Grandmasters, your first week and your second week, how they contrast, and you know, about this Mage deck in particular, because I thought the way you played this was pretty darn impressive.
So week one, you know, I brought the Hunter. I thought I'd queued Faithfuls into Warrior and Mage, but I ended up losing those games. They were a rough series. I played a lot of practice games. Thought I was favored going in, but we played best of 3, so really anything can happen. And then this week, last week, people were saying Mage was the best deck. I didn't believe them. I played Mage, got to rank 3 on ladder, thought I was good at it, and then I realized I sucked at Mage. Mage is the best deck ever. And Fina was right. So I brought Mage this week knowing that I have to win a series because you just not draw once. And then obviously that was just a crazy series of draws in those games.
Well, I totally agree with you. You definitely suck at it if you're only number 3 on ladder.
Yeah, maybe.
Hello, George.
Hi, Darok.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty decently.
Would you-
I actually, those games were better than any games. I played 50 games of practice. No games went that well.
I mean,
I don't even understand.
it pains me to say it, but you played some very good Hearthstone there.
Thank you.
We were very
Yeah,
impressed.
there were some big setups there. You wouldn't see, like, when he coins the wrench caliber, I play 1 banana because I get to set up the giant with the second buffoon into his turn 7. And into his turn 7 means that that's the turn he wants to boom. It went perfectly.
He did have it all set out. Admirable was saying...
You questioned me.
I mean, I have a somewhat pessimistic view of BoarControl. I've seen him at his absolute worst. Let's be honest here, George.
Is this how English people talk to each other? Would y'all like some tea? Would that make you feel more comfortable here? You're just throwing shade at each other.
Sounds quite nice, actually.
No, okay. So now that we have a few plot twists here that we have discovered Darok was wrong and that you did plan it all out.
Kel Supreme.
Talk to me about game number 2. It looked like things started to go a little bit rough there, and you were hesitant on the Khadgar Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling turn. Talk to me about that and what was going through your head in that turn.
So he clearly had quite a reactive hand. I played it a lot. I played it from both sides as well, tons. And his reactive hand very likely contains Brawl. There's lots of cards like BGH. BGH is actually, I think it's rubbish against Mage because I never play into BGH unless I go all in against it, which is what I did in that series. I figured going all in was worth it because my follow-up, as you saw, I had that huge refill with the Cyclone. I wanted to empty my hand so I could refill with the Cyclone. Sometimes if you don't go in enough, you end up with this hand where you haven't committed enough, they've managed to clear, and then you can't even do a big cyclone turn because your hand isn't empty. So I felt like it was worth going in. If he has the Brawl plus Shield Slam, it's obviously bad for me, but then I get to do the refill, and hopefully I can have. And that's the nuttiest cyclone I've ever seen.
That was
like
absurd.
2 power creations, 2 Conjurer's Callings.
Honestly, BoarControl, I have to commend you on this. This is one of the reasons that I think that I tune into your stream very often. I think you're fantastic at explaining your game plans overall and really getting the macro images clear. So given that this is the first time we're interviewing here, do you have any final words for it, like letting everyone know where they can find your stream at and such?
Yeah, so my stream, BoarControl HS, I stream daily. Obviously, when Grandmasters on, I'm streaming in the morning, but then it's daytime, you're up into the evening. We're streaming mainly practice. There's a specialist best of 3 I play, and also just ladder, trying to get as high ranked as possible.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, BoarControl, and congratulations on your win here, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Well done, George.
I love how fond of him you clearly are.
I love Boar. I do mock him. I was about to use some English swearing there as I almost caught myself off balance. I've fallen into my British routine of talking to Boar there.
You talked a British person for 10 seconds.
Right, exactly. But yeah, in all seriousness, he is my longest running sub on Twitch. He is the person that I watch far and away the most when I want to learn about Hearthstone. Pretty much everything smart I know about Hearthstone, I've learned from BoarControl.
Yeah, for me, the big takeaway of this is don't let the records fool you. This is an extremely tough field the players are fighting week to week, and some of them are just going to have to walk away on the short end of this. They're tough matches, and you have to get it right and perfect almost every single step of the way. So that's our 6th and final match of the books. Of the day on the books, which means that we're going to be heading over to Americas. We got the post game coming up with TJ and Frodan, who will be joining us on the desk. So don't go anywhere. Post game, and then we're headed over to Americas for some more Grandmasters.